Okay, ready to get started? Okay, I'd like to call the September 24th, 2025 school board meeting to order. We have 7 board members present. That brings us to item 2A, adoption of the agenda. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, thank you. And that brings us to a couple recognitions that we're going to be doing this meeting. And the first one is the recognition of the First United Methodist Church for donation of school supplies.
The Board of Education extends its heartfelt thanks to the First United Methodist Church for leading the 25-26 school supply donation initiative, along with the many community partners who joined in this effort. We are sincerely grateful for the generous donation of school supplies that supported students from pre-K through 12th grade. Your generosity has ensured that every student began the school year with the tools they need to succeed, helping to create a more level playing field for all. We recognize the time, energy, and commitment that goes into making this project possible, and families across USD253 are truly appreciative. Thank you, Sarah and your team, for being with us tonight and for your continued support of Emporia Public Schools and the students that we serve. (3B) Recognition of EHS National Merit Scholarship finalists. The Board of Education would like to recognize Emporia High School seniors Linus Lingenfelter and Colin Wen, who have been named among the 16,000 semifinalists in the 71st Annual National Merit Scholarship Program. Linus and Colin are competing for one of 6,930 scholarships worth nearly $26 million. Semifinalists represent the top scores in each state on the preliminary SAT. Out of more than 1.3 million test takers nationwide, only 16,000 students earned this honor. As part of the next step, Linus and Colin will work with the Emporia High School administration to develop a detailed scholarship application that highlights their academic record, extracurricular activities, and awards. They must also write an essay and continue to demonstrate strong performance on the SAT or ACT. We are incredibly proud of you, Linus and Colin, for this outstanding achievement, academic achievement, and we wish you the very best as you advance in the competition.
And next, we're going to have program highlights, item 3C, EMS turf facility.
Adjusted so I can talk. Otherwise, I feel like I have to hunch on over. Thank you, Board of Education, for inviting us tonight. I'm really excited to kind of share what we're going to talk about, our EMS turf facility. We've got some pictures that we're going to show you. We've got some students that are going to kind of talk about some of the things they're excited about. When I got to sit down and meet with each of them in my office, some of the things that they shared that they were excited about, I wasn't expecting, but I think when you hear it, you're going to be like, that makes sense, all right? I'm not going to take any of their words from them. One last thing I did want to say is as far as the pictures go, keep in mind those pictures were taken about a week and a half ago. There has been a lot of updates since. For instance, the bleachers on both sides are completely finished and ready to go. So we'll actually have people in stands that are actually getting to use the bleachers tomorrow. We're pretty excited about that. The track in the pictures doesn't have lines on it. We've already started putting lines on the track as well. So even though the pictures, were only taking a week and a half, there's been a lot of updates since then. So I definitely encourage and invite you all to come out and check it out. Without further ado, I'm going to invite Matt Baumwart, which is the new EMS Assistant Principal and Athletic Director.
Thank you for the opportunity. I want to show the highlights of the kids too. Jax McNeese will be up first for a couple slides.
We are excited to share that the new EMS turf and track facility is getting closer to completion. The security fencing surrounding the facility is being installed next week to help protect the investment at EMS. PE will also have access to use on the field for their activities. The track will need markings, the parking lot is being paved, lights and new bleachers are being installed. The press box will be one of the last pieces added.
And like Mr. Burns said, that is a set of bleachers that we will be able to use tomorrow night. They got it to where it's game ready. Sorry, Jax, this is eighth grade football. We have a seventh grade football player, Cole Olivier, gosh, I had it right. All right.
It's a lot nicer if the potholes all gone. Excited,
Yep, good.
excited to use the track in the spring and use the throwing facilities. We feel important and valued, excited to have bathrooms, used to have to walk back down into the building. Falling on the ground doesn't hurt my back for a week.
Thank you. Sam Huber is soccer.
Excited to have concessions. Concessions used to be just a table. Passing the ball is smoother. The ball goes when you want it, and the lines on the field are clear and easy to read. Feel safer while on it, and it doesn't hurt when you get tackled. There are no large clumps of grass and dirt all over the field, and practice is better.
And then Harper Wright, also soccer.
The kids are excited and proud to have the facility as nice as the one being built. The investment in this project will be felt for many years, not only by the football program, but many programs that the facility will serve. The first home soccer game on the new field.
You were part of that. That was good. Thank you. And the next games, we will have football there tomorrow. Seventh grade football on 10-2 versus Seaman. And then we did have a cancellation yesterday, so soccer does get October 7th. We're going to have a home game up on the field also. One thing we want to do is make sure we want to thank you for this great new turf facility. Thank you, guys.
Did you guys have any questions for us before we go take some pictures? All right. Again, thank you so much. It looks great. I really hope you come out. I actually got some pictures I can send to you guys that was taken from a drone. Kind of has a nice aerial view. I didn't get a chance to get them into the slides, but I'd love for you guys to see those. You can really see the field in its totality. Okay? Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, I wish we could start all of our meetings that way, but, so the next item is 3D public comments. Public comments are allowed for a duration of 3 minutes per speaker to be timed by the board clerk, and speakers must sign up in person for a public comment by 1 p.m. the day of the board meeting. Casey, do we have any public comments?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to item 4, the consent agenda. The items on the consent agenda are considered by the board to be routine business items. Approval of the items may be made in a single motion and a second, and majority vote with no separate discussion. Should an item, board member wish to discuss any item at his or her request, that will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
And I wanted to mention that we have a rather large donation from one of the elementary PTOs. So again, thank you for all the support for our schools from all of the organizations, the people that step up to support our kids. And that brings us to item 6A, change order for the middle school track concession stand.
Yeah, Mr. Schwartz is going to be here. He may get some help from some folks that are coming up as well, but you know, you got to hear all about the amazing things that the kids are discovering about the new track and field, and now you get to discover that it comes at a cost, and that cost has gone up just a little bit since your first approval.
All right, well, anytime you have a project this size, there's things that you don't foresee or things that change through the process. Percentage-wise, this one's a really small change order compared to the normal percentage we would see on versus the total cost. you guys have the line items there. There were some permits, and then some locations had to be changed on the plumbing to bore into for sewer and for supply. That extended our costs. There was also some stuff for future plans that was done before the concrete was poured and everything, so we don't have to tear it out. So if there's questions, I have ATGs here with us for any specific questions or anything that I might be able to answer. So for this, we are asking for a $79,411,222 additional in the track fund for the cost of that.
I have a question. It's kind of two parts. So we have a lot of money going to permits. Is that like permits to the city?
Yes.
Okay. And then what do we need to do in the future to more, like have more foresight or plan in the event that we need permits like this down the line? How can we plan for this?
I think the biggest thing is that since any of the big projects were done, a lot has changed at the city as far as who's there and the processes. And so I think we're a lot more in tune with what that is now, to where we can be ahead of it with the right people, whereas we were more reactive this time, unfortunately. So now that we kind of know all the players that are involved, we can be in front of it for anything in the future.
I don't know if Dylan might want to talk about his experiences. I mean, you've done a lot of these projects.
Yes.
And there were some unanticipated soft costs that you don't typically
Yeah, so-
see. You might talk about that.
Exactly. So whenever we bid these, especially when we're doing concession and bathrooms, it's just standard protocol for us to assume that we'll find water or sewer within 150 feet. And you can kind of see that not only did we not find it within 150 feet, yours is actually on the north side of 24th Street, and that's the most nearest place to actually access the water. To prevent the project from stopping traffic, we went ahead and went with the boring route, so that way it wouldn't disrupt everything else going on 24th Street when we just go down the list. So the extra conduit for the school is actually for future sound systems and for security systems and stuff like that, for cameras and everything like that. Again, when we bid these, the 4-inch primary, that's expected to have enough volume of electrical for the stadium lights, the concessions, everything else. You just plan to have enough power right there. Unfortunately, you guys did not. So again, we had to tap into with Evergy and run conduit for that. And then, like he mentioned, doing these, we have a standard of roughly $10,000 is what we expect to pay per permits. That's just a statewide NOI that we typically have. In the past, we have not always had to go through this much extensive permitting, and each municipality is completely different. So this one required every aspect to be to have a stamp drawing, and so that's where most of the costs came from.
That's primarily, I wanted to make sure that you ran into some requirements with regard to drawings.
Yeah.
Typically, your drawings might be accepted, but they weren't. You were having to take them back to an engineer, get them.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
it's a lot more common, especially with what I've seen in the past, is cities are a lot more proactive in terms of seeing progress. So I can give for instances, but a lot of times they just want to see the actual connections. So they come out and do the inspections. We submit as-built and the preliminary drawings that we provided them as well. And in this case, the city of Emporia required us to get everything stamped.
What do you anticipate the timeline looking like if we approve this? Like what are the next steps, and then when will the project be finished?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the next step would be, we're actually working through a lot of this right now. And in the next week, a lot of this can just be wrapped up. So I'm really hoping that this project can still get completed. Almost everything should be done by October 1st, at least by the end of that week. I would believe everything should be right there. We just got to get this approved and move forward with everything with that. But it'll move fast because nothing on here is really takes too much time. It's a pretty quick process, so.
So everything will be done by October 1st, or the permitting process will be done?
We've gotten the permits, so part of this was the procedure we had to continue to follow through. We had to go ahead and get the permits. So we've already got the permits at this point, but in terms of the rest of the work, that should be completed by
So like next week, we'll have everything done?
for the most part, yeah. We'll have a little bit of here and there stuff to wrap up, but I foresee we're putting in the roof and everything right now for that building. And so now we just got to get the water actually supplied to it and the sewer and everything else. So, yeah, we're right there. Next Wednesday is actually when we are planning on paving the parking lot. So from that perspective, everything will be pretty much wrapped up, and then we'll have a walkthrough and see what items we need to address after that.
And Corey, is there any other potential expenses that we need to be considering at this time?
We still have to get like trash cans and kind of the little things that go with a new facility. We have a meeting on that to see what all needs we have. And then there is some technology stuff for like sound systems and security stuff that we talked about the conduit was for. So those are future, after we see what we've gotten, what we need to have coverage for.
Any other questions?
I move to approve the 74,000, it doesn't have the exact change, would you like me to do that? Okay. It does say 74.9 up here in the motion.
Yep.
The 79,411.22 change order from ATG Ram Industries LLC for the middle school track project as submitted.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that brings us to item 6B, health insurance renewal for 2026.
Yes, Mr. Swartz has this item also, and he's got some friends from IMA that we've been working with. This is kind of the second look at all the options we've been talking about, and you'll have an opportunity to ask your questions with regard to, the whole self-funded exploration as well.
So yes, we do have IMA with us here tonight. 2 weeks ago, we had an intro into self-funded versus fully funded, and tonight wanted to bring the team in to really go through their presentation a bit more in detail and have some questions ready at the end of that for discussion. So I'm going to turn it over to Lisa and team and go from there. Nick.
Yeah, great to see you all. Thanks for the opportunity to come in and speak. Tonight we have Lisa Clark, who leads our practice in Kansas City, and then also Cody Purdy, who leads our national education practice for all of IMA, to go through where we stand previously and then also to what a self-funding platform looks like. So thank you for the time.
All right, good evening. Thanks for having us. As Nick said, my name's Cody Purdy. I'm our national practice lead for public and labor, so I work with all of our public entity clients, of which a substantial portion is self-insured. I've been underwriting and managing plans for 17 years. I'm a certified employee benefit specialist, and the majority of that has been in the self-insured world and transitioning from fully insured to self-funded. One key thing that I'd put out there first is self-funding is a viable strategy for many, and we review it from a very objective and a best practice perspective, not a you must move self-funded kind of deal. We like to have the financials and the strategy mapped out and let the numbers and the insights in the conversation and consultative direction for you all help drive that decision. Your team has been exceptional in partnering with us through this, and so a lot of due diligence and work has been done on the back end. So tonight, want to just spend a few quick minutes summarizing the results of that and kind of a recommendation or a direction for consideration and what the multi-year strategy around that may be, and answer any questions at the end. So what you'll see on the screen there is just an executive summary. You're currently fully insured, which means you pay a fixed amount of premium to the insurance carrier. They pay out all of the claims for your members covered under the plan, whether that's $1 million in claims or $20 million in claims. You pay a set amount of premium and you move on until renewal. And at renewal, they underwrite based on what happened in your past years and then what they're anticipating moving forward. This year, your fully insured renewal based on Blue's underwriting methodology and claims experience, they projected a higher than trend renewal. To put it mildly, we're at about a 26.5% increase if we choose to stay fully insured with a status quo benefits arrangement without making any changes to the plan setup. One of the things that triggers for me as an underwriter in our team is this concept of kind of buy high. You know, there is variability across plans. You are not credible. Additional $50,000 claimant on your plan can drive you up. One coming off can drive you down, and so you see variability year over year. Oftentimes, higher experience presents a good opportunity to consider the self-funding, which is where this comes into play. So work through with the carrier and actually alternative scenarios as well, and full diligence to see what that self-funding option may look like relative to the fully insured. If we want to jump ahead to the next, in the self-funding environment, you actually take on, as the district, responsibility for paying for the claims, with a caveat that you are protected on a certain capped level. So we structure the plan in a way where you are protected for a capped amount for every employee, spouse, and child covered under the plan, and then an umbrella coverage amount. And so what this illustration is here is to look at those varying scenarios and see, A, is self-funding viable? B, how would we want to go about funding for that? Excuse me here. So what you'll see here is on the left is the blue bars, dark blue bars are the fully insured premiums. So you pay this amount no matter how well or how poor your plan performed, with the highest blue bar there being the renewal. It's that 26% increase to the $7.3 million. Think of this as a best case and worst case scenario. As long as you have the exact same enrollment used for this illustration, you will pay $7.34 million in premiums. You know that no matter what happens with the claims and experience. We did get a competitive proposal from another vendor that is a lower fully insured premium. It does come with plan design takeaways, benefit takeaways to reduce the premium down. That would be a negative impact to membership and would require a network of providers changes. The first gold bar is the immature maximum, and so I'm going to try not to get too in the weeds of the underwriting nerddom that we live in here, but what that means is that's your worst case scenario for the year. And the way we've structured the proposal and the underwriting of the plan for next year, this would be a maximum for the district. It's the worst case scenario. Think of it as fully insuring yourself. If you were to put aside that, got the numbers are a little small here. That's $6.8 million into an account every month. Instead of sending premiums to the carrier, if you put that same monthly amount into a bank account and paid out every claim and fixed cost you have, you'd put aside $6.8 million. Worst case scenario is you run to that amount, you pay out every one of those dollars in fixed cost and claims. You're protected contractually beyond that, so you would not need to call for extra cash. That's at maximum. The difference between maximum and what we expect to happen is a margin of about 20 to 25%. And so we would have you funding to that amount, but we actually anticipate your spend to be at the 5.83. And so what happens is if you put aside all those dollars and funding, and you run as expected, not at worst case scenario, you end up with that $1.5 million delta as a reserve. So I'm going to kind of bring that back to a couple points. One, your maximum worst-case scenario is a worst-case scenario with upside potential, and it's lower than the fully insured renewal. Fully insured is set with no upside potential. The likelihood is that you run below maximum, less than 2% of plans self-funded hit maximum. So it's a high likelihood that you come in at or below that number. And you would end the year paying less for your actual plan than the fully insured premium and would have a reserve built up at the end. The far blue line illustrates a hypothetical renewal for next year. If you were to move self-funded, run exactly as we projected, you would have run at the 5.8, save money off fully insured renewal, have 1.5 in reserves, and then you get about a trend renewal into that subsequent year by the time we go from the 6.8 million to the 7.4, and then you're kind of off to a more normalized. I'll stop there. Any questions at this point? That's the really deep technical side of it.
Well, the one question I have is based on this year one, the little, under the, I guess, the first gold bar, it says year one, 7% lower renewal than fully insured.
Yep.
So if we're talking about a potential 26%, this is at a 19% increase with this partially self-funded plan.
Yes, that's correct. So it's actually, it's a 17.8%, and so that is less than that 26%, the way, backing into the math, but yes. And so that's the first point is by funding to your worst-case scenario, you're funding 7% lower than what you'd be doing if you stayed put as a fully insured option, and then you add the upside from there.
And then I noticed that on the first slide, that, or the executive summary, it said that the Aetna option was a 9% increase versus this potential 17%.
9% versus current. So the Aetna option is several percent lower than this. And if we want to go back to that chart, that's a great question and clarification to make. So Aetna's, again, no upside, no downside. That's fixed. You're for sure going to pay that 6.3. The self-funded option is the 6.8 there, so it is that 8% higher than the Aetna option. But you don't have member disruption, you don't have benefits takeaways. We would have the exact same underlying benefits. And that's the worst case maximum where we're not likely to run, where we actually think you'll run is at the 5.8 million. So if that occurs, you actually run $500,000 less than the Aetna option. And so we don't have a crystal ball. When you think of, when I say expected, it is truly back to your high school stats class, right? Maybe we have a math teacher in here. But that expected is right at the middle of the bell curve. I would call a standard deviation on this size of a plan of about 6 to 7%. So you're as likely to run at 93% of the 5.8 million as you are at 107% of the 5.8 million. But within that range, you're coming in at relatively in line with the Aetna option or better. And that's where it becomes, you're taking on some risk for sure, because we can't definitively say what that is. But that with that risk comes the upside, and you're funding yourself. And then the more important key that I would like to convey tonight across the self-funding is it's not just a year one consideration. It's over a 5-year period. I put it this way, I've been doing this a long time. I'm certain I can manage a self-funded plan over a 5-year period more advantageously than a fully insured. And what I mean by that is, in a vacuum, there's some taxes and fees and fully insured premium that you don't have as a self-funded plan. It's worth a couple percent, kind of negligible, but at the end of the day, at the very least, your claims are going to be your claims. And so that's what you're going to pay. Your premiums are predicated on that. Your self-funded plan is. The key to self-funding, though, is you take more control of your plan. You have more levers to pull to enhance benefits, to drive better behaviors, to improve conditions over time, to result in better performing plan over the 5 years.
So just to make sure I understand, with your projections here of the different self-funded plans, you're looking at coverages that are very similar to what we have now. I mean, not we're trying to keep it equitable to what we've had.
Correct. It would be the exact same plan setup. That's the benefit of it. We've done this with Blues to be able to say, keep the same plan design, keep the same network.
And in contrast, like with the Aetna projection, it's lower, but it's a reduced, in some areas, reduced coverage in that plan.
Correct.
Okay.
And that is kind of detailed on page 5. It has the plan design side by side. Maybe one more slide. There we go. So on the left, the 3 columns there would be the plan design setup of your existing plans with Blues, and then on the right would be Aetna. And they aren't substantial major takeaways for most of your employees, but they are benefit differentials and takeaways. And the other piece is switching from the Blue Cross Blue Shield network of providers to the Aetna network of providers for your members.
Can you explain in a little more detail, in particular for those who might be listening in on this, what the exact differences are between the Aetna and the Blue Cross Blue Shield plan? I guess in simple layman's terms.
Sure. So they are highlighted in red. They're a little difficult to see. Right now, the coinsurance is on the PPO plan. You have a $0 deductible. Members pay a percentage of certain claims up to a maximum threshold there. So in the current PPO, it's 50% to $1,500. For the Aetna plan, it would be 40% coverage to the out-of-pocket maximum. And so if you have a $3,000 claim as a member, you pay 50%, or well, let's call it 4,000, so the math works out. You pay 50% of that, and you're capped at the $1,500 threshold there. In the Aetna world, you would pay 60%, and it would go all the way up to $6,350 as the out-of-pocket maximum, and so you're paying a larger percentage of the claim in that scenario. That kind of benefit differential holds true on the $2,000 deductible as well, just with the slightly different numbers. Urgent care facility and emergency room, they're trying to do some benefit design to ensure that the emergency room visits are only emergencies, and so not covered if it's not deemed emergency. That's a fairly substantial takeaway. That's a tough thing to administer as well. It's hard to say definitively based on codes and billing things what is emergent and what is not, and so you could see some noise from that. And then out of network, there's an added deductible on that first richest plan, and then the co-insurance is slightly less rich on the 2,063. So meaning what members have to pay toward services is more on the Aetna plan than on the Blue Cross Blue Shield plan. Was that helpful? Please call me out if not. Not jargony enough.
No, that
I
was.
live and
Thank you.
breathe it all day. So
It's difficult to understand. I just wanted to actually get it out there specifically what those differences are, because I'm looking at this, and Blue Cross Blue Shield as fully funded just seems unsustainable. Since I've been on here, it's always been really big increases, and then we all kind of flip out, and then we, grouse whoever our insurance people are, and then they beat Blue Cross and Blue Shield. They take a little bit off, but that's becoming cyclical at this point. So thank you for explaining that in a little more detail.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Thank you. And that renewal consideration too, that's really what we contend as self-funded strategists, right, is where you take a little more localized control of the plan. With the risk comes the control, and there are myriad solutions available in the market space. That's our job, is to help bring those to the table and help be really intentional about the solutions that you put in place that help to kind of bend the trend of your health plan spend to mitigate those renewals. And then to get a little more technical on you, but to give a peace of mind around it, if following the strategy we've mapped out where you have a reserve on hand, part of that is to help normalize through the volatility and variability year over year as well. So sometimes you will have a projection that comes in high, but we think it's an anomalous situation. you can use the reserve to mitigate that renewal sum. So a 12-point renewal can reasonably be brought down to a 7 or 8% renewal, and help normalize through that over time. So in good years, you build up the reserve, where your claims, good years meaning your claims are running lower than they historically do, and in bad years, when they're running a little higher, you can use reserves to mitigate through that.
So from your kind of projections of our current use in the partially self-funded, with that increase for the first year being that 17, 18-ish, what do you expect year two to be? If we kind of stay in the middle, what would that increase for year two look like?
That's a great question, and the year two renewal is at, underwritten as roughly a 9% renewal. From that, you've set the stage at the 17, and now it's a 9% up from that. I will say that's a pretty conservative estimate that we've put forward there. But we're also we're using higher trend assumptions on calculating the claims, because we're anticipating, or we are seeing and anticipating continuation of the cost of claims rising at a more rapid clip in the last year and moving forward in the next 2 to 3 years across the nation. That also means we would anticipate higher fully insured renewals over the next several years as well. There's this concept of pay now, pay later, right? If you have a bad year of claims while you're fully insured, you're capped at that 7.3, but you're gonna get it at the next renewal. So next year, you're gonna pay it no matter what. When you fund to this amount and you have a bad year of claims self-insured, you pay now instead of later. But if that's anomalous, that you have an extra $200,000 claim, but that's no longer gonna be around, next year we normalize out and you get to a better place. All that to say, we've been really conservative in that estimate of 9%. We did a 5-year look back in the last week since we've been talking about this, of hypothetically, if you'd been self-insured over the last 5 years, where would you land? And in the raw underwriting without assumptions or adjustments, it basically comes slightly better than break even to the fully insured, so kind of no loss, no foul. If we assume about a 2% improvement eventually over time of bending the trend over your claims in the 5-year window, this year's several percent below the fully insured premium, and your 26 renewal, if you were sitting self-funded today, would be a 9% renewal. So just giving some context on that. So just trying to model out different scenarios to be able to give you context around that, but the direct answer is that 9% up there.
Thank you.
Obviously, I know claims can vary year to year, and we don't know that, but with a self-funded plan, is there more risk in a way to you, like the first year before you get potential of some money set aside, or, and it's hard to, I know it's hard to know, but.
That's a great question. In a 5-year window, what we typically see is 3 good years to 2 bad years. And by good and bad, that's all relative, right? But I mean higher than expected and lower than expected. So it's quite possible that we're having a higher year now, and next year we have a higher year and we run close to that maximum and we don't build up a reserve. That is a potential scenario. The benefit to funding to the maximum is you're at least funded and yourself budgeted to that worst case scenario, to where you don't need to call for cash, which is a whole lot easier for the bank down the street or the restaurant across the street, right, than a school. But then we would need to consider how we fund year 2 to try to build up that reserve subsequently. And that would result in a higher renewal, wanting to catch up to claims and also build up the reserve. But I call back to, regardless of what happens in next year, you're going to pay for it in some way. It's going to be either in that self-funded catch-up in next year renewal, or fully insured renewal is going to be high on top of the 26% you just realized this year. It's that pay now, pay later philosophy. The key is to be committed to at least 3, preferably 5 years of the self-funding, and over that period we'll have budgeted and performed at a net or at an aggregate amount lower than the fully insured over that same period. Does that help answer that? That's a lot of extra detail, but.
I think at the last meeting, we talked a bit about what self-funding would look like from kind of an in-house perspective and what would be expected of our team here to kind of take on if this would be an additional something on their plate. Can you speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah, that's a great question. We are not talking a half FTE or substantial, measurable amount of more work in that regard. There's a difference in the number of invoices and the timing of payments going out. There are some compliance considerations and some filing processes that get followed. The great news is with IMA or some other consulting partner, we help guide you through that, right? And so we support the team with the information necessary to do any federal filings, any tax filings, tax premiums that they call them in the federal government, do how to remit them, how to calculate them, how to get them done. And then monthly, instead of one invoice to Blue Cross Blue Shield, there's a couple of different payment things that come with that. So it's paying the fixed cost on a monthly basis, and there is a weekly draw of claims that is done instead of just once a month premium. So monitoring that, reviewing and approving that, and the last need to know consideration around that would be, as a self-funded plan, you own your eligibility, you own ensuring that the claims that are being paid are appropriate, and the individual protection I talked about is called stop loss. Any claims over that would be reimbursed. The stop loss vendor will occasionally request information from the HR team verifying that the person was in fact eligible to be on the plan, is still employed by the districts, those things. So just some tactical things, definitely more to it, but we would help support through it.
This may tie into the stop loss, but what happens in the off chance that your first year, second year, whatever, if you have what I would consider a catastrophic year, multiple transplants, multiple premature births, multiple cancer diagnoses, whatever, within your employee group, and it is just astronomically higher than what we planned on, what happens in that? Because not just from one person, but I'm talking multiple employees that have sky-high expenses.
Sure. Great question. So the way we've structured this is year 2, you would remain self-insured. And again, we go back to kind of that pay now, pay later. We have the stop loss protection in place for those large claimants. We would renew that stop loss protection for year 2, and you've got the aggregate protection. If it was appearing that you've hit the reverse lottery and have all of the worst claims, and it's just going to continue. You have 3 Duchenne muscular dystrophy patients that are going to be $1 million in claims a year for the foreseeable future, and a few hemophiliacs at 600,000, right? Like, these things can happen. Stop loss provides a protection mechanism in the 1 and 2 year window. But to your point, there are scenarios in which stop loss no longer wants to cover that, and you get an exposure perspective. We can start to plan for a transition back to self-fund or fully insured if that's looking to be the mid and long-term outlook of what's going on within the plan. And we add on protections for the plan on the stop loss in the next year, right? So year 1, you're self-funded. Year 2, you would need to self-fund. We would add what we call terminals to your stop loss that would protect you in the transition to fully insured, so you're not on the hook for any claims. When 28, you switch back to fully insured, you would not have an open-ended exposure. So all of this is about multi-year planning and setting in place contractual protections and considerations around whether you stay self-funded or need to migrate back. There is a way to make that migration back over a 2 to 3 year plan.
I really appreciate Jen's question, and I think maybe my perception was incorrect. The other board members, please feel free to correct me, that we were kind of led to believe that we had a lot of these like catastrophic, if you will, claims in previous years, and that was part of what was driving up costs for us. Is there a way, like, not right this second now, but in the near future, that we could kind of predict what is coming based on the claims that you have seen from us? I don't know if my perception is correct or not.
No, your perception's spot on, and a great question. Predict, no. Model, anticipate, expect, based on large actuarial models and other normal curves of outcomes, right? Yes. So we can say, while you've had large claim experience driving your cost up and driving renewals up, a certain amount of large claim experience is to be expected. At the end of the day, 60 to 80% of plan spend is the result of a very small number. It's just the way all insurance works. You think your car insurance, you pay for 15 years without having a claim. My 16-year-old daughter wrecks her car in the first 2 months, right? Like that's how it all works, right? And so the question is how many more claims over anticipated are we gonna have, and can we plan for that? There are actuarial models that we have at our fingertips that we use to estimate that and drive the underwriting of the self-funded plan over time. So we could definitely provide some, again, go back to stats class and do some bell curves of outcomes and anticipated claims and kind of what you've had relative to anticipated in the past.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for the rest of the board, but I think that information would be helpful for at least me when making this decision. Something that is important to me is making sure that we have a high quality plan that is stable and sustainable for our employees. And so kind of this idea of like, well, if things are kind of going awry, we might switch back in a few years. I just want to make sure that we kind of have the best vision of the next 5 to 10 years as possible as we make a really important choice.
Yep, that's a great point.
I was wanting to sort of back up when you talked about the requirements of our business office, because it sounds like a lot. And so I think one of my questions is, you said that sometimes there might be a phone call to HR to make sure an employee is, eligible. And then you also kind of talked about some of the bills that need to get paid, and it seems pretty intense. But so it's kind of a two-part question. So the first part is like employee confidentiality is really important. And it does kind of feel like that might be, that wall might be a little murky, if they're calling and saying, hey, is Jamie Reaver eligible for benefits? Like, that's something that when I just show my Blue Cross Blue Shield card at the doctor, I just know that I have a lot of privacy and confidentiality in that moment, and my employer knows nothing. But now that's murky. So that's one concern, is like, how do we ensure that level of confidentiality so an employee, when they go to the doctor, they just know it stays between them and the doctor, but it's, so can you help me understand that?
Yep, great question and very fair concern. HIPAA has very strict rules and requirements around who can access any protected health information and the uses of it and the review of said information. When you structure a self-funded plan or fully insured for that matter, the district will have HIPAA policies and procedures in place that define the practices and processes for safeguarding information and only need to know experience or insights into what's going on with plans. So there are also business associate agreements and other contractual forms that go on between the carrier, ourselves. We are HIPAA business associates, where technically HIPAA allows for the exchange of necessary information for purposes of managing the plans. More often than not, and almost exclusively, that's done de-identified of information. So when we're reviewing underwriting and plan information, claimant X is $100,000 in claim, claimant Y is, but HR would be deemed a business associate and have the appropriate safeguards in place for managing those processes.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I think we're all familiar with the HIPAA document, but that said, like, there's HIPAA, and we of course trust our staff here, but me as a potential employee who needs health care, just knowing that my employer, even with a HIPAA agreement in place, could still know more about my health than they would have if we weren't self-insured. Is that, would you say, a little accurate?
Almost all self-funded plans are fully insured. They have same access.
So for your current fully insured plan, everything is de-identified. For a self-funded plan, I think the max information that would be seen primarily would be on those weekly check registers, and it would be noted the amount that needs to be paid, the provider that's billing those services, and typically, tell me if I'm wrong, there's a member name that can be associated with that check register.
Yes, they
So-
do both a financial and
Yeah.
a non-financial version of it.
So beyond that, there should be de-identification unless there was a call with regard to their eligibility, if they're an active employee, et cetera. That's already happening on any of your disability claims. They're processed very similarly, and it has to be that way in order for that claim to be processed. So I can't imagine in most scenarios that there would be much more information shared or accessible than what is already accessed on the basis of a disability claim.
For a disability claim, though, can you educate us? Would that involve the nature of the disability? I think what Mrs. Reaver is getting at is they'll know that they're calling because they're processing a claim, is what you're saying, but will they know that I'm calling because of something underlying that claim beyond there being a claim? It's the actual health information, I think, is what Jamie's concerned about.
I just want our employees to have full confidence that, you know, what has always been private in between them and their provider, like it doesn't enter the workspace at all. So even a phone call could be triggering for someone as well.
Right.
I think also to further extrapolate this point is Emporia is not a very big community, and we all kind of know who the doctors are and what they practice, and that even if that like is associated with a person or the amount, it doesn't take a lot here, I feel like, to put two and two together. We don't need to like further go onto this point. I think that Grant has a question though.
I have a couple of questions, and I don't know my language here or so forth, but regarding the stop loss coverage, do we, as a district, would we pay a premium to some company to have that stop loss coverage then? And I don't know if that's the right words, but.
Yep. Yeah, you're using all the right words. Well, you're picking it up quickly. Yes, it is truly, it's a risk transfer, right? So they'll protect you at a certain threshold. If you want to take more risk, you pay less in premium. If you want to take less risk, you pay more in premium. Just like the Progressive name your price tool, right? On your own deductible for car insurance, think of stop loss in the same way.
Okay. Then my other question is, with most current insurance coverage, you get a bill and there's the, I'm going to say list price, that's not the right, but then because you got such and such insurance, what the insurance actually pays is discounted, a certain percentage and so forth. Does that continue to work the same way with self-funded programs?
Yes, and if you move self-funded with Blues, all of that process is going to stay the same, going through the same thing, right? So the life of a claim, I go to the doctor's office, I have an MRI, doctor sends it to insurance, they bill it to insurance at their number. If it's a network provider, insurance has a contract in place with that provider that says we're going to pay you X. And so if they bill $3,000, but the contract says $1,500, that's a 50% network discount. So the allowed amount becomes $1,500. All of that, it happens before stop loss, where stop loss comes in play. If I have an ongoing complex condition, I do 20 MRIs in a hospital stay, and the sum total of all of those bills is $250,000 that the plan's going to pay. The plan will pay out the $250,000 to the providers, but then be reimbursed back by that insurer, the stop loss insurer, for the amount over that threshold.
Okay, so there would not be it would not increase the actual cost that we would be paying for a particular service as such?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I have a question about the stop loss premiums because Grant kind of got to some of it for me. I was thinking of the same thing. In your experience with self-funded plans, have you seen many employment groups have issues with the stop loss insurance premiums? In other words, having those bad years where they actually use up all that insurance and still have a bill left over. Is that common in self-funded plans?
Yes, I mean, we're annually negotiating stop-loss renewals and competitively marketing stop-loss on all of our self-funded plans, and we're living it now. It's that time of year. There's strategies, contract mechanisms, and competitive bidding in place that allows for managing through challenging situations of having higher than anticipated claims experience. I'll get extra weedsy to directly answer. If we have a $100,000 stop-loss deductible, so we're paying $100 for every employee, spouse, and child, as an eyes wide open in your decision-making process, in the industry, there is a full process called lasering a claimant, where they say, hey, you have a Duchenne's musculodystrophy on your plan. There is a gene therapy for that costs $1.6 million in a year. We know that's coming, so we're going to insure you, district, at $100,000 for every employee, spouse, and child, except this person. You're going to be on the hook for the first $1.6 million. That's a potential. We call that the reverse lottery. Those things are so expensive by the very nature they are so rare, right? And so the prevalence of that is really low. We have contract mechanisms that we put in place to prevent that. And it's called no new laser contract provision. So for your current year premium, you can do a slight load in the premium, again, shifting risk to them away from ourselves that says at renewal, even if we have that person show up, you can't put the laser on them. We stay at 100. So that's one example of navigating that. Another is just competitive bidding. And this is all very top of mind. I just finalized a city renewal yesterday where we had a $1.6 million laser on a Duchenne's. We took it out to market, and we actually got a decrease in premiums and no laser. So they all look at risk differently. They have different appetites for risk, and so the competitive process around that also helps to mitigate that. And then lastly, that reserving philosophy comes into play. Part of the use of reserve is to offset or mitigate some large claim exposure that may come on. It's all about managing budget to appetite for risk to the premium and the deductible threshold. There's an art to that, and that's where we come into play, helping you all navigate that. Done right, you're protected over the multiple years. And then in the worst case scenario that Ms. Thomas referenced earlier, there's always the potential to pivot back to fully insured when necessary. In 17 years, I've moved probably a dozen from fully insured to self-funded, and I've moved one back across hundreds of plans that I've managed over that time. So.
And another question I had, is there a way to take, say, the last 5 years of claims that we've had and then show us if you had had a self-funded model? Yeah, would there be some way that we could see that, and then we could really look at our actual employment claim history as opposed to just kind of, thinking about it in a vacuum, and then see, would that have been a good year? Would that have been a bad year? And how sustainable would that be, since we don't really have that information, since we haven't done it yet, to be able to make a trail of data. Other things I just wanted to mention to the board, I am kind of concerned about how much work that would be for the business office. We're not a large business office, practically speaking. I think I'd like to hear more on how that would work if we went self-funded. And I think the insurance committee is meeting Monday, right? Yeah, pretty soon. And so I would really be curious to hear from some of those members. Obviously, the financial decision is ours as the board, but I'd like to get some input from the people who are actually on the insurance plan about the Blue Cross Blue Shield versus Aetna. Because I'm not on the plan, I feel like I need to hear more about the people who would be impacted by those changes, if they think that's viable or not.
I will say that's the primary reason I haven't asked a ton of questions tonight. I've just kind of been absorbing all of your great questions, is because I knew the insurance committee had not had a chance to look at, all of this yet. And so I'm really just kind of waiting to hear their opinion. But of course, you make the great point that we are making the financial decision ultimately. But that's kind of why I just haven't had that many questions tonight. I will ask, and I don't think this is a question for you though, is we cannot be the most unhealthy district in this state. And I'm very curious to know what the premium increases are looking like for other districts our size, and how are they dealing with that? And are there districts just contributing more to the premium, or are we just not hearing about it because we're just not? Because we can't be alone in this. But I always hear Lillian talking about how her insurance isn't that expensive. And so, but it's also a single plan, I assume. So it just makes me wonder what is so significantly different for our district than other districts.
That's a very loaded question. Percentage increase, it's higher than the norm of what we're seeing, right? In the fully insured world, let me answer it this way to start. In the fully insured world, their starting trend assumption that they're using in their underwriting is anywhere from 12 to 15% for, depending on the carrier. And what they mean by that is we think we need 12 to 15% more in premium next year across our book of business to pay for the increase in claims cost we anticipate to happen next year. So that's kind of a jumping off baseline point for consideration for you. But the other key I would use in terms of percent as well, sometimes high increases are indicative of being a victim of your own success and good, because all percentages are relative, right? When I look at your plan cost per employee per month normalized as that's just adjusting for if you increase employees, you're going to pay more in premium, right? We want to see year over year how has plan performed. You're in line with or below national benchmarks or kind of regional benchmarks from how much the plan costs. It's just as you keep premiums down but claims continue up, sometimes that results in a larger increase on the premiums as a percentage basis, right? If I put that another way, if each of your last 5-year renewals were 2% higher, your 26% renewal would be a 13. And so that context matters as well. Another anecdotal piece, we partner with 15 schools in the broader Kansas, KC metro area. And I'd say low teens would probably be the average renewal across those. So you're not alone in seeing in the last 5 to 6 years heading up into this year, we were single-digit renewals for sure. We're absolutely seeing an uptick in plan cost increases across the country, across the region, not alone there. So there's a lot in that, and we can give kind of some benchmarking around from a cost perspective and an increase perspective. The underlying plans that you cover matter substantially. A lot of times what we'll hear is, well, my plan's a lot cheaper. Well, yeah, you also have a $3,000 deductible and a narrow network, and you don't get to see as many providers, both of which keep premiums down, right? So there's a lot that plays into it. Yes, please.
I was also going to add, we talked last year about the richness of your plan designs. Because you have the embedded coinsurance with the lower maximum, that does impact your renewal as well, where the Aetna proposal removes that embedded coinsurance amount, more burden to your employees from an out-of-pocket standpoint. But because the benefits are so rich, those renewals are higher, can be higher, combined with the utilization that you guys have had. So there is an element of consideration in that as well. And I would say, in echoing what Cody shared, we see employee-only rates, family rates that are lower than what the district has and also higher. Again, that goes back to the plan design, the out-of-pocket maximums, and then the utilization by those members as well. So I know that you've been a part of the committee meetings in the past, and we've talked about that a little bit, so I wanted to just mention that again. It has to be a consideration when you look at your current Blue Cross plan design and compare to the Aetna option, because it does have some impact to what your decision would be.
I'm not sure if you have more presentation, but I think this is a request that I actually have of Josh in our business office. It's been detailed tonight, like the responsibilities to administer a self-funded plan. So I think I would need to see a plan from you to help me see like how our business office could manage this. It seems like a little bit more work than we thought, and we've had some attrition in the business office, so do we actually have the capacity to take it on?
We
So
can
if you could,
research that. We'll find out for sure some of those key, I mean, the question would be, what are those exact processes and how much time does each one take per month or per week? Is that kind of?
yeah, I think that would be really an important part of my decision.
I had another question. You referenced it a little bit earlier, but what are you seeing much movement from fully funded to self-funded plans or along Kansas school districts?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've moved several of our local peers, or a couple of them recently, self-funded, and one particularly was in a similar scenario. It was a really high fully insured renewal, and that was the jumping off point, kind of that buy high. National benchmark-wise, we're actually seeing a plateauing of plans that are self-funded because it's been a steady increase over the last 15 to 20 years to where those that are going to self-fund are already self-funded. 100 to 500 employee range, the benchmarks are somewhere in the 65 to 75% that are self-funded in that. But I will caveat that drastically. Your 100 to 250 are in that, and they're less likely to self-fund. And unfortunately, I don't have benchmarks of the 250 to 500, but that 250 to 500 are going to be up in the high 70s, probably to 80% range. So plateauing, but really high. I think some number like 85% of all people in the country are covered under a self-funded plan of some sort, because all of your jumbos and others are as well. But it's a very common strategy. We still see plans transitioning that direction, and again, only the one that I know that's gone the other direction. And I do want to add what I think probably Lise was going to chime in, just from our perspective, and we'll help pull together that here's kind of a list of additional tasks in a month and potential hours to it or time to it. But we'll also add in there, that's what we're here for. We are a full team that supports, and we do the monthly or biweekly touch base calls with the team, provide the reminders, provide the guidance. Really, it's our job to make that lift pretty minimal and pretty easy for them, and so we'll add that context into that analysis.
So I have a question. Sorry, you go ahead.
If I may add really quick, and then I'll stand back. It's important to me to clarify with you the question that was asked previously with regard to the confidentiality of PHI. Whenever the stop-loss carrier reaches out, and I was trying to think through this to see if there were any exceptions, they're really just asking, is this person still actively at work? They don't see any information, they're not asking any information, just like your disability claims. They have to verify that person's eligibility, and that's the extent of it. So I just had a lot of conviction. I needed to come back up here and clarify that so you didn't have that worry when we left.
Well, thank you. But I also felt you alluded to like the bills that we would pay, and so it felt like there was a little bit more information that would be shared. And so it wasn't just that phone call. That was just one example. But it sounds like there's a bill that comes that we have to pay that might have more detailed information.
So technically, self-funded plans own all of the data, and HIPAA allows for access and rights to everything, right? But it can be set up to where reporting and financials and check registers are financials only and de-identified and PHI'd. And so with stated desire of that, that's the way the setup would occur.
So I'm sorry. I know you've answered so many questions, and we appreciate that. Just from, I have a little bit of a background with employee wellness, and do you, going back to what you said, checking in with the business office, assisting them, do you help either doing it directly or indirectly, implement any sort of education too? Because I go back to the whole emergent or urgent. People don't, I wish everyone in America was required to take a class to find out what qualifies and then symptoms you need to worry about versus don't, and all of that. They don't. They might Google it, but so I know that one company I worked with, they made it mandatory. It was on the clock, they were paid, but they made mandatory sessions where they would break down the different topics, like when do you go to the ER versus urgent care versus your regular, provider. And they had to go, they had to answer questions to prove they had learned, and it was just very, very hands-on, very direct. And most of them, liked learning that. They liked feeling equipped to make better decisions, like if my child is complaining of this. You don't want to overreact, you don't want to underreact, and either of those could cost you in a financial way or in a tragic way. And so I'm just wondering, again, if you help provide any of that or guide them with providing it.
That's my favorite question of the night. And absolutely yes. And that, when you'll see the 5-year scenario that we pulled together of the self-funding, we've modeled 2 different things. One is unmanaged, one is managed. And one basically just takes the claims you've had. We do underwriting as though you were self-funded, and we compare that to the fully insured. It's relatively in line. The other assumes we do a huge chunk of our job of what we're brought in, to your question, of helping to really diligently and actively manage the plan. And that looks like a lot of things. One is wellness programs, whole health programs. One's employee engagement and communication that helps improve behaviors and understanding of the plan. I actually am speaking at a national conference in about a month on health literacy and improving health literacy within populations and within plans. That's squarely in our wheelhouse. And then the other is in kind of plan setup and plan design. And that's a less known benefit of self-funding when done right. We are huge proponents of win-win benefit setup, where if we do and incentivize something in the plan to help change behaviors and drive better patterns of use in the health plan, covering things at no cost for employees so that they do X, or wellness rewards or those type of things that then save money in the long term, that results in the plan performing better over that 5-year. And so when we say managed, that's what we're talking about. All of the above, what you were listing, those kind of strategies and solutions. That's what we're here for. That's what we bring.
I would think our wellness program would really kick up in terms of what we do, how we do it, what we require, if we move to this kind of plan, because there needs to be more self-accountability, but it's amazing how you start holding each other accountable when, I mean, everybody's in this pot together, so to speak. And so, and you don't want that to ever turn ugly or judgmental or anything like that, but just in a positive and encouraging, and again, that just positive accountability, it really does start to matter more, I think.
Yeah, and you hit it, the kicking it up. Every dollar invested in a wellness program is investing in yourself when you're self-funded, whereas that's just hoping that claims are better for the fully insured vendor. I always preface, that's my finance hat, not my HR hat. I mean, at the end of the day, wellness programs are directed at improving the livelihood and well-being of your population as a primary thing, but when we think financially, right, it's an investment and it bears fruit.
Okay, do we need to look at any more slides, or are we past that time?
Well, there's a finale.
Yeah.
There's one more on this presentation that we want to share. And it's probably a separate document, Casey, that would have the flow chart to it, this picture. And really, this was one for us that when we looked at this, there would be, first question is, would we move to be self-funded? Or do we stay fully funded? So the no would be, does the district switch? And then the colors are what would be compared. The red would be if we stayed the current plan design, it's a 26% increase. And then the 2 reds down below are using the same plan design in that self-funded. The reason why there's 2 percentage differences is that 8.6%, this kind of goes back to Corey's 50-50, how much risk you're taking on. That's the expected costs. And then if you want, the 17.8 represents that fully, the max cost premium. But to cover that max cost is that increase compared to that moderate one. Anyway, those are the 3 that would be compared. I think we're also picturing for the Health Insurance Committee to look at probably the red, the purple, and the blue, because that really looks at, do you want money into a premium increase, or would you rather absorb that into a plan design change? So we feel like that's probably more the discussion for that the insurance committee. And then this group would really be focusing on that no or that yes, those 2 pieces. But we were trying to figure, I mean, really that's help for us. It was a way to see what kind of decision needs to be made in 2 weeks. So really, that's the final any questions on how that design looks or what kind of pieces will be decided on in a couple weeks? Okay.
Just want to clarify and make sure that we're saying this all right, and we all have the same understanding. It's not up to the insurance committee whether the district takes on the risk of a self-funded plan versus a fully funded plan. That's a Board of Education decision. It is up to the Health Insurance Committee to inform the board as to what they would prefer if they stayed with a fully insured plan. It is still the board's decision as to which of those fully insured plans we would actually go with. Is that?
Okay.
One more, just kidding.
Thank you all.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you so
the time.
much.
Thank you.
That's going to bring us to 7A Board Policy Update, first and second reading.
Yes, Dr. Erica Mickelson is here to talk us through. We've had a little bit of discussion about this policy change that was made recently and some concerns that we had as we came into the district new, and want to talk through that with you, and we have a recommendation.
So I usually don't read, but I'm going to read this because I don't want to get it incorrect. Based on the recommendation of current administration and the USD253 Policy Committee, the Board of Education is reconsidering the policy change made on August 13th regarding policy GBO resignation. This district-approved benefits plan after their employment ends. Employees who have resigned and currently pay premiums to participate in the district benefit plans will be allowed to remain on said plans through December 31st, which is the end of the current plan period. They will not be allowed to enroll to participate in district-approved plans in place effective January 1st, 2026. This revision does not impact employees retiring from the district and entering a statewide CAPERS plan. The USD 253 Policy Committee reviewed the policy change and requests board approval. So any of our staff who resigned and are on the plan, have agreed to be on the plan, will still be able to be on the plan until the end of the calendar year. We will not accept anybody who resigns additionally to be on the plan. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And the whole idea of this initially was the hope that we could have people added to the plan that would, in hopes, bring that plan down. And I know we haven't done this for very long, but it just doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. And so really looking at this, we want to be mindful of that. And it's timely, as we're talking insurance, that we make this plan change.
I did want to reiterate, too, our conversation, about that scenario of potentially a policy like this could encourage a very difficult to insure individual to seek employment with the district for benefits with the full intention of getting on our plan, being able to resign, very shortly after, and have the opportunity to stay on the plan at their cost, but they would at least have access to, quality health care through our plan. Ultimately driving the costs up if they were hard to insure to begin with. It's not that you would deny them because they're hard to insure, but it's just a risk that we take the way we have this written currently.
I have a question. So actually I have a couple questions. So I'm glad the folks from IMA are still here because they might have some answers too. So I know that like when an employee leaves, they're eligible for COBRA.
Correct.
So, and that's 18 months?
18 months? Yes,
18
I'm getting head nods, yes.
Okay, so, and they would just pay the premium anyway, right?
Correct.
The same premium, so if we're just saying we're not going to let you be on our insurance for as long as you want, but there would be time limited? Oh, I think someone has an answer. And then the next question I would have, kind of along the same line, so if someone it like leaves and they take COBRA, does that hit our plan numbers also, or is that kind of a separate policy? Or are they still under our umbrella during COBRA?
Great question. I'll answer that one. I need you to repeat the first one. I didn't hear it as I was walking out. So,
How long is COBRA coverage, basically?
so basic COBRA coverage in the event of termination of employment or a qualifying event is 18 months. There are additional COBRA limitations depending on a spouse's death, et cetera, that are greater than that 18 months. But for just a typical qualifying event, it's the 18 months. And then now the second part of the question.
The second part of the question was, so are they still under our
Thank you.
umbrella?
Yes, yes, those claims still count toward your utilization.
Knowing that there's a time limit if it's, someone who uses our plan extensively. So, I mean, it's easier for me to approve this only because people can still join COBRA.
And just to kind of ask then, so when you are looking at premiums then, because you just said this, so then when all the factors get factored in, do you know that that person's no longer employed here? Like, are you factoring them out? Like, if they're on our COBRA, but we know they're done in 6 months, are they being removed from our calculations?
Yes, that is our job.
Okay.
To make sure that we're looking at all of those scenarios and communicating clearly with the individual or the underwriter at the carrier.
Thank you, I really appreciate that. Do you have a question? So my next question is, I do see that you said that the revision does not impact employees who are retiring from the district.
Correct.
And I believe that's in the negotiated agreement.
It is, yes.
And also, is that pretty standard among school districts to let retirees?
Typically, yes. It's not, I mean, I wouldn't say it's half and half, but I mean, typically districts would allow retirees to continue on the plan. And we looked at numbers, so it's a handful of staff who are taking it. So we have a couple that, 2 staff asked to stay on the district health insurance, and then 4 to 5 are on the vision and dental. So, when we look at usage, we do have a handful of staff or previous staff that this will impact, and we will make contact with those previous staff members to let them know of this change.
I really appreciate you having those numbers for us so we know what the impact is. Thank you.
And I really appreciate just your willingness to act quickly once we sort of discovered that the plan had some flaws in it. So I just really appreciate everyone being nimble.
It's just, it's not going to benefit us the way that we thought it was going to be and what we anticipated and what was communicated to us. So we thought this was the best plan of attack.
I make a motion to revise board policy GBO as presented, removing the option for staff who resign to remain on the district's health, dental, and/or vision plans effective immediately. Those resigned employees that are currently enrolled in paying premiums to participate in the district's health, dental, and/or vision plans will be grandfathered and allowed to continue on the selected plans through the 31st of December 2025, at which time our current benefits plan period ends.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. That brings us to item 7B, board reports.
Not a whole lot to report for the Emporia Recreation Commission. We approved a bid for some pool repairs. Seems like an annual thing, actually, if you know anything about our pool. We also, I think, since the last meeting, there was news about the DeBoge Sports Complex renovations, and that Stormont Vale was a community partner that donated quite a bit of money, so we're really appreciative to that partnership. And then probably the only other big change that we had was that we discovered that with credit card transaction fees, we were spending about $58,000 a year because the ERC was covering that. So we did raise we include a % now in digital transactions with cards. to make up that balance, because that is quite literally the cost of like a person's salary. Still probably going to be some expense there, but just trying to be conscientious about cost cutting and spending taxpayer dollars wisely.
Okay, thank you for that update. Item 8A, Superintendent Report.
Yeah, just real quickly, we have a few things to update you about. Teacher recognitions. Last week, we were able to do a lot of recognizing of teachers that were nominated for various awards. We had our Kansas Teacher of the Year elementary nominee, Alex Vaschultz from Village fifth grade teacher. She'll be our elementary nominee for the K-TOY award. And then our K-TOY 2027 secondary nominee, Sarah Bays, one of our high school vocal music teachers. And then the 2026 Kansas Master Teacher of the Year nominee, Kathleen Gilliland, one of our high school math teachers. Our 2026 Horizon Award nominee, this is for new bright and shining star teachers, Alyssa McHugh from Walnut. And then we also had our Next Gen Under 30 2025 honoree, Emily Magana, who's one of our student support specialists. So very proud of all those teachers. And as we talked about and shared when we were doing our KVOE spotlight with these folks, they're just a small sample of all the great teachers that we have in our school district. So we're proud of them. Just to touch on high school gymnastics, as you're aware, this is the last year for our high school gymnastics program. The Kansas State High School Activities Association is actually no longer sanctioning it as a sport after this season. And so they were having a special recognition of coaches and gymnasts this week. I was able to get out there, and the district the high school did a really nice job of recognizing our gymnasts and then our coaches as well. Just a little bit about, Barb Clark was there. You guys might know Barb. I got to meet her the other night. Started the program in 1985 and coached that team for 26 years. Our current coach, Angela Podobaric, got it. Assisted under Barb initially, and then took over that program and coached for 25 years. And then our assistant coach, Tara Machado, who actually was a participant in the program at one time, was assisting them for 8 seasons. So, kind of a sad, happy situation out there, but it's certainly going to be, club opportunities and other opportunities for our gymnasts to continue to do what they like to do. It just won't be a part of the high school sanctioned program any longer. And then I just shared, I think all of you have been contacted at this point, but at our Government Matters meeting the other morning, they were talking about the School Board and City Commission Candidate Forum that will be held at Flint Hills Tech College on October 6th. And board for everybody that might be watching, our school board candidates will go first. So if you want to hear from the school board candidates, that's at 5:45. Of course, you have the fortune of running uncontested, but people may still want to know and ask you questions, and so you get to do that. That'll be about 30 minutes, and then they need to leave the rest of the time because we've got several folks that are running for city commission. There was something on the last agenda item that I was going to go back but like Jamie, since we've talked about something else, I've forgotten what it was, so I'm going to keep it right there.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to item 8A, Kansas Avenue updated contract and addendum approval.
Yeah, so when I entered the district, this was one of the items that was ongoing, and so I did my research back to the May 14th board meeting. Did see that the board had approved conceptually to sell the Kansas Avenue property to this particular buyer. At that time, there were contingencies in that presentation that the board listed as being acceptable as a part of that. It has just taken us this long for me to grab it and get caught up, and then some back and forths between the attorneys, getting them involved to actually get a contract, a basic real estate contract, and then rather than go in and start redlining that base contract. We had our attorney write up an addendum to that contract to ensure that everything was addressed the way that he felt that we needed it addressed as a school district. We have reached a point in time where we're happy with the base contract and the accompanying addendum and would recommend approving that.
Any questions from the board?
I can do it.
Sorry, I was going to call you up if we had questions, but there you are.
I'm here
You
I'm here
snuck
just
up
in
behind
case.
me.
I do that.
Matt's been patient as I got caught up, and then I've been patient as he keeps sending our stuff over to the buyer, and we get it back, and we've gone back and forth a few times, but
Yes.
we've got it figured out.
I move to approve the contract and accompanying addendum for the sale of Kansas Avenue, 315 Market Street as submitted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, thank you very much.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
That takes us to item 9A, executive session, consult with attorney.
And I'm all over this one because it's exactly 7:30 almost, which means I don't have to math that hard. I move to enter an executive session for 15 minutes for the exception for matters which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship under the Kansas Open Meeting Act, and that we return to open session in this room at 7:46 p.m. Superintendent Dr. David McGehee, Attorney Tammy Simoji, Attorney Mike Norris, and Attorney Doris Chester are invited to join the board for this session. I spoke too soon.
Sorry,
Second.
Doris Chester will not be attending. I'm going to take her off of there.
Thank you.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Motion to return to regular session.
It's been moved and seconded to return to regular session. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
I move to enter into executive session for 10 minutes for the exception for matters which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship under the Kansas Open Meeting Act, and that we return to open session in this room at 7:58 p.m. Superintendent Dr. David McGeehee, Attorney Tanny Samoji, Attorney Mike Norris are invited to join the board for this session.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Hand vote, please. Motion passes 7-0.
Move to return to regular session.
It's been moved and seconded to return to regular session. Please cast your vote.
Did yours work, Jeremy? Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. That brings us to item 9C, executive session superintendent evaluation.
I move we enter executive session for 15 minutes to discuss the superintendent evaluation pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under coma, and will return to open session in this room at 8:15 p.m. And Superintendent Dr. McGehee is invited to join the session.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Can we do a hand vote? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
Motion to return to regular session.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, return to regular session. All those in favor, please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
On future board calendar dates, we have Wednesday, October 1st at 4:30 PM, we have Around the World at Walnut Elementary School. And Friday, October 3rd is the EHS Homecoming at Welch Stadium at 6:30. And then our board meeting, next board meeting will be Wednesday, October 8th at 6 PM here at Mary Herbert. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.